What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to be doing a three-way comparison of the Vincoroor Fire of the Sky, the Takara Tomy MP-57 Skyfire, and the FansToys Phoenix. All versions of a masterpiece Skyfire or Jetfire. And this is particularly interesting for me anyway, because I'm actually planning to keep all three. I'm a big fan of Skyfire and Jetfire, so I have a lot in my collection. So all of these are going to stay regardless of the outcome of this comparison. And we have actually done this comparison before, so we did compare these two with each other. I did use the standard version of FansToys Phoenix, so this time we're using the X version, which is a limited edition painted version. And then today, we did compare these two, but we're going to be using the KO oversized version of the Siege Jetfire, which comes with some new accessories, new features, so all of that will factor in here. As I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible, but of course there's subjectivity involved. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection. For me, the direction is all of them are going to be in my collection, but for others, they may want to decide or before purchasing all of them. So with that being said, let's get started. This will be a little bit different than normal. The winner of a category is going to get a point. If there's two that are tied for the winner, they'll both get a point. If all three are tied, then they'll get zeros across the board. So this one, you can actually have two figures getting a point in a particular category. So with that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with accessories. All right, and here are all the accessories that come with exception to the flight stand for the Takara. I just couldn't fit it here, but we will count that in later. But you can obviously see FansToys isn't going to win this category, but I like to just show you so you can see how they stack up. So let's go through them. They all come with a blaster. FansToys and Takara have it painted and sculpted similarly, whereas the KO, they've got it, sculpted to look like the Netflix cartoon. It does have a little bit of silver paint there. They all come with a flight stand adapter to mount them onto the flight stands. So we'll count those off. The FansToys comes with a translucent eyes that you can use in the one face, whereas the Takara and the KO come with a battle mask to make him look more like the G1 toy. Count those off. And we're left with the alternate faction symbol insert. We have an alternate faction symbol insert for Takara. And I'll grab one of these accessories here and count those. And now FansToys is out of the running, so let's continue with Takara and the KO. They both have two sets of blast effects. The KO one can break into three, but I'm going to count those as one blast effect. They both come with count these guns, I guess, against these faces. So you get two alternate faces here for Takara. We have an alternate chest symbol here, and I'll count that off against a gun. And kind of here's what we're left with. We've got some minifigures, and we've got this. So count off this gun against Optimus, which is actually pretty cool. And we're left with almost the same number of accessories, but we haven't looked at the flight stand yet for the Takara, but we've got Wheeljack and Jazz, and then we've got the alternate chest piece for the KO. I'm going to count those together, and then finally we've got the flight stand itself, which this one actually doubles, and we'll talk about that when we get to gimmicks, but I'm going to count the KO and the Takara as a tie on accessories. They both have a lot of stuff going. Slightly different accessories, but we'll give them a tie on accessories. Right now let's talk about the gimmicks on these two. And all three have the opening cockpit here, and you can pretend to store a figure in there. This one doesn't really fit anything, but these two you can kind of fit some characters. But that's about it for FansToys. So let's just talk about these two in terms of gimmicks. So we'll start with the Siege figure. You do have a new feature here on the KO, which is the light up eyes, which I think is really cool. The faction symbol can flip around, which is the same as the original design. That's a nice feature there. You can slide out these hip skirts to reveal these handles in the jet mode so the characters can hold on to him. You also have the handles in the arms. We also get the ability to install all of his armor parts to give him that G1 toy look with the face mask and the chest piece, the guns and the armor. All that gives him that G1 toy look. So that's about 5 gimmicks here on the Siege. On the Takara Tomy, we have the ability to open up his head here for that thing from that one scene. You can see his chip there. You can also take him and do the same thing with the G1 look. You can split the backpack, give him the face mask, give him the armor. Actually, he doesn't come with armor, but you can give him that G1 toy look by modifying those things. And you also get some storage here. You can open up all of these panels and you can store the minifigures in jet mode, and also you can put one in the cockpit. And then the last feature here is you can open up this backpack here and you can store all of the accessories in there. I thought that was a really neat feature, to be able to just put it all away. Everything will store away on this guy. Nothing needs to go back in the box. So because this guy's got 4 gimmicks, this one's got 5, we're going to give gimmicks over to see the KO just by a hair. Right, next, let's talk about the cartoon accuracy and the sculpt. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image here. Now, this one's a little tricky because the Siege Jetfire was actually not going for the G1 look. They were going for the Netflix cartoon. So in order to test cartoon accuracy, I'm going to actually put the Netflix cartoon image here, and I'll put the G1 image here. And I think FansToys was really going for their own kind of stylized look, a little bit more athletic and beefy, whereas Takara Tomy was absolutely going for that super duper cartoon accuracy, which I think some people actually don't like. But as far as the look, I mean, they nailed the look of the cartoon. But I also think Siege Jetfire nailed the look of the cartoon. It's almost like they took the model out of the cartoon and made it into a toy. So I'm going to give these two cartoon accuracy. I think in the past reviews, I've actually compared this to the G1 model. And I think that's kind of unfair because it was actually trying to be the Netflix cartoon. When it comes to sculpt, I think there's not going to be any change here from my other comparisons. FansToys generally has the cleanest sculpts. They don't have any kibble. You can see kind of the Takara's just got a lot of little kibbly bits or like things sticking out, tabs. And the Siege Jetfire, although it's relatively clean for a retail figure, it does have some parts, especially in the arms. So these parts right here that stick out, and then this gap back here, not bad, but still, not as clean as the FansToys. So I'm going to give FansToys point for sculpt. Right now, let's talk about the paint on these. And when it comes to FansToys, they typically do paint. Now, the original version of Phoenix didn't have fully painted. Mostly it was the red parts you see, but this X version actually is fully painted. All the way you see as a pearlescent white, and then the red is this metallic red all throughout, including the backpack and the wings and everything else. And it really looks sharp, and it's well done. It's really nice quality paint. The Takara also has quite a bit of paint. It's not fully painted. The chest, the shoulder bits here, the hips, thighs, knees, and lower legs and feet are painted. Most of the backpack, not all of it, is painted. So you do have quite a bit of paint, but the quality of the paint doesn't measure up over to the FansToys. On the KO, we do have some paint as well, but not nearly as much as these two. So we're going to have paint over to FansToys. Right, next, let's talk about the build quality on these figures. And when it comes to the build, I think the weak link here is the Takara version. There are some parts that, don't seem to fit well together after you manipulate it for a while. FansToys, I've transformed many, many times. It's still a very solid figure, stays together well, and it really just performs well. They've built it to last. This KO is also pretty well built, but there's a couple of little things, very minor, but these wrists, they just don't stay locked, and that was an issue on the original too. And then on the backpack here during the transformation, there's a little bit of an issue with that spring-loaded cockpit that's supposed to come out of here. So I'm going to give build quality over to FansToys as well. I think they typically do well in an area, and this one is no exception. Next, let's talk about the articulation on these. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually so you can see how they perform. So starting off with the Siege, the head is on this neck joint actually goes up, so you can get it way up, and then the head itself can go up, and then it goes down, so you can get it to look down with that neck panel. It does rotate all the way around. No side-to-side movement. Shoulders rotate around on a ratchet here. Out to the side on a ratchet, gets you all the way up to there. Rotation at the elbow. Double jointed elbow, but just due to the way it's designed, it does stop you right there because this little piece here gets in the way. It is double jointed. Rotation at the wrist. You have a single pin for the hands, but they aren't individually articulated. They do look nice. They don't actually function. But all you can do is, kind of have it open. And it does have the auto transforming gimmick there on the peg. Hip skirts can move out of the way. Oh, and we forgot the waist rotation, which is unique because he's the only one that actually can have a waist rotation. Legs go up to here on a ratchet, back to here on a ratchet, out to the side on friction. There's a soft ratchet here, so there's one click point there and one click point there. That's an improvement from the original. 90-degree bend at the knee on a ratchet. Ankle tilt out to there, and then toe tilt and heel tilt down. For the Takara Tomy, we have the head on a ball joint and a swivel. So it gets down to there, up to there, side to side, rotates all the way around. The neck itself has movement too. So because of that neck joint, you can get it way down and way up, and you can move the head back and forth on the figure. So quite a bit of movement there. Shoulders rotate around on a ratchet joint. You do have butterfly joints here, and just due to the way it transforms, you can actually get this up and over. There's a lot you can do with those shoulders. You can bring the shoulders out to the side, and then you can lift up on this again. This shoulder joint has a lot of articulation built into it. Only problem is sometimes this tab comes untabbed from the sides. So you just got to get it, re-tabbed in on the back, and that can be a little bit of a pain, which is one of those build issues I was mentioning earlier. But coming to the elbow, you have a rotation at the elbow. Double jointed elbow, you do get the full bend here on this one. Rotation at the wrist, individually articulated fingers at 1, 2 pins. I really like the way these are done. And then the thumb is on 2 pins as well. Not typical for Takara. Usually they pin the fingers together. So that's a nice change. For the hips, it's a little bit weird, but the hip itself can rotate back and forth, 2 clicks, and then the leg can rotate, so you can get the kick really high, and then back to there, out to the side on a ratchet, up to there. There's a little bit here with the click points. The next click out is a little too far, and then coming down to the ankles, you get 1 click in and out. Now you can't slide it down on a joint, so that'll allow you to get a little bit more forward and backward. And you don't have to bring it all the way out. You can bring it out like 1 click. But it's hard to get a good balance between these two. And I forgot to mention that earlier. And that's interesting. My ankle tilt just failed. I just had a failure on camera. But double jointed knee, the knee pad can move out of the way, but you get the full bend out of that. That's pretty nice joint there. And like I mentioned, ankle tilt and forward and backward, and then a drop down joint on those feet, although it appears that I might have just broken one of those joints. All right, moving on to FansToys. The head, it's on a rotating swivel, gets up to there, down to there, rotates around. Shoulders go up to there, rotate around on a ratchet joint. Your rotation at the bicep. Double jointed elbow gets you the full bend. You have in and out movement at the wrist, rotation at the wrist, individual articulated fingers. I love these fingers. They also splay outwards due to the design. So these have always been one of my favorite hands. The thumb has two pins and a ball joint. So very expressive, fun hands on Phoenix. Probably some of the best hands in the business, to be honest. All right, coming down, you don't have a waist swivel or ab crunch. You also don't have a waist swivel or ab crunch in this, but you can fake it with those hips. So these two are limited at the waist. You have the hip skirts here. The leg will go up to there, which is pretty limiting. Back to there, also limited out to the side on friction, but can't hold the weight. 90-degree bend at the knee. And you have a little bit of ankle tilt, and then a forward and backward. Really, it's forward, not really backwards, but... All right, and sorry about the cutaway there. I had to go and check out this ankle. It is actually indeed broken in that direction, so I did request a replacement part from the Chosen Prime. It's actually been a day since I recorded that first part. But you can see the score there, and the Takara Tomy is going to win by a long shot. I mean, it's not even close on articulation. Now let's talk about the transformation and engineering. When it comes to transformation, I think the FansToys and the Siege are probably the most enjoyable. Relatively simple and straightforward. There aren't any parts that really get stuck. The only thing on the Siege is that little pop-up canopy in here, and that's just on the KO. The original doesn't have that issue, but for the most part, very simple and fun transformation overall. For the Takara Tomy, there are definitely some parts, especially the backpack, where things kind of get held up, they get stuck, and then the arms, how they fold into the backpack, that part is also a little bit frustrating at times. So I think it's between the KO and FansToys, and both of them are relatively simple, so I'm going to give them a tie on the transformation. I think they both are just fine. When it comes to engineering, though, it's in kind of a twist. I'm going to give that to Takara because I think they are able to really work in a lot of articulation, which we saw in the previous section here. And they also have a lot of features worked in there, and lots of gimmicks, lots of little storage spots, and all the accessories can store. Those are just really cool engineering techniques and engineering tricks I think they use. So I'm going to give engineering over to Takara. And there they all are in their alt modes, and I had to put them vertical just because they don't quite fit in the area, but we will take a look at each one of them. Now, all of them do hit the overall shape and size of Jetfire. They really all nailed that, look with the backpack and the tail fins and the boosters. They all have that. So they all hit the cues pretty well, but there's definitely some differences here in the overall consistency and aesthetic of the jet mode. So let's take a look at the Siege KO first. This figure does look pretty good from the front, but when you get to the side, that's where things start to come undone. You have this hole here. I do like the cover on the bottom. That is unique, but giant hole right here in the middle. Not really consistent panels there. Same on the back. There's a lot of kibbly bits. So not the cleanest look, but it does have some nice features. Just overall, not the cleanest looking jet, at least for the masterpiece level. Coming to the Takara version, again, looks really nice from the front, very nice backpack. But when you come to the side, that's where things start to fall apart. You got this giant hole here. You can actually see some of the parts in there. And then same here, there's a giant hole there. And then just parts that kind of just don't look consistent. Same up here on the front of the jet. There's a lot of breakup here on that. And well, I do like the features overall of the jet mode, and the fact that, it has a really nice display factor. You can split the backpack and do all that. It does have some inconsistency in the jet mode. And the FansToys, pretty clean. It does also have a gap in the back here between the backpack, but not as much as the other two. It also, just because of the paint job, you've got this very brilliant red and the pearlescent white. I really like what they did with the cockpits because you got that metallic look underneath, so it really shines. And then these back engines, they've got this gradient paint on the boosters, which looks really cool. So of all the jets, I think the FansToys actually looks the best. Not only is it consistent with the cartoon, but it also just looks very premium due to the paint and due to the overall aesthetic. So I am going to give alt mode over to FansToys. I think they kind of nailed the look. All right, next let's talk about the cost on these. And this is kind of a no-brainer because the KO, which is expected, comes in at $105. And then these two, the price has varied, but the retail price is around $300 for both, $290. This one varied somewhere between $260 originally and $300 is where I bought it. So either way, the KO is going to win on cost. And the final factor here is the members' choice category, where I asked my members which one they prefer just based on looks and no other factors. And you can see FansToys is going to win the members' choice category. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score there. And FansToys, to my surprise, is going to win this one. And after all these years, FansToys still is able to hold up against these new, more modern Skyfires. But with that being said, I do think that each of these serve a different purpose. And really, depending on your collecting habit or your collecting preference, they might all work. So for me personally, I am going to keep all three, but if you prefer a more fun, playable figure and you want to display it in different ways and mess with the blast effects and use the light up feature and all that, and you want a good value, I think the Siege KO definitely has that covered. If you want the most screen accurate and the best articulated version of Skyfire ever made, then I think the MP-57 has you covered. And if you want a more heroic proportions, really nice paint job, really solid build quality, but maybe a little bit lacking on articulation and features and accessories, then I think FansToys is going to be the one for you. So ultimately to decide which one is right, but one thing that happened during this review, which I wasn't expecting, is the Takara Tomy ankle failed. And during that review, after I posted the review, I gave it a 5 out of 5, which was, a strong recommendation. Multiple people contacted me and said they had hip issues, they had ankle issues, they had, breakage at the various places. Their backpack doesn't slide in place. I didn't have those issues during my review, but now I'm experiencing that ankle issue. I am going to get a replacement from the Chosen Prime. They're going to take care of me, but that does give me concern about the longevity of this figure. Especially since other people have already reported their issues. So I think I'm going to retroactively downgrade my score from a 5 to a 4 out of 5, which is still a recommendation, but, be cautious with those joints. But that's it for this comparison. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I helped you decide what direction you want to go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.